Well, thank you all for joining today to the AEDC webinar. My name is Katie Lowers, and I work with People AK, which is Bredesen Management Group and Alaska Executive Search. For those of you who are familiar with Alaska Executive Search, and it's been around for 40 plus years, we have started working together because we know that our teams are kind of better together. We are able to do talent sourcing and recruiting, engagement and retention, strengths development, strategic planning, and talent selection. So we'll be rolling out some new information and just a new perspective on how we work together here shortly. But we are happy to be partnering with AEDC on these monthly webinars, and we're looking forward to the presentation today. So Bill, I will hand it over to you.
Well, thanks so much, Katie, and welcome everyone to today's AEDC Voice. We've got a really great program for you today. Very large audience. Really happy to have all of you joining us. But first, I want to give our real sincere thanks to Alaska Executive Search and Bredesen Management Group for their generous sponsorship of today's AEDC Voice. Paula Bredesen and her team are great supporters of AEDC, and we can't thank them enough for the support they provide to our efforts to make Anchorage a great city to live, work, and play. So we're going to jump right into it. Today's AEDC Voice guest is Mr. Jim Szczesniak, Airport Director at Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport, otherwise lovingly known in the acronym ANC. Jim will discuss what he sees as the future of passenger service for ANC, review the summer of 2021 and what the announcement of Northern Pacific Airways means. Szczesniak will also discuss how the air cargo industry is changing and how ANC is preparing for future air cargo growth, including how a new method of shipping, AKSpeed, can allow ANC to capture more cargo from the ocean freight market. Now, Jim Szczesniak is the executive in charge of the day-to-day operations of the fourth busiest air cargo airport in the world that was recently rated the best air cargo airport in North America. The Anchorage Airport processed 3.4 million tons of cargo in 2020 and is the strategic link between Asia and the Americas and base of operations for all three of the major integrators, UPS, FedEx, and DHL. The Anchorage Airport is also the hub for Alaskan aviation and welcomed more than 5 million passengers in 2019. ANC is a key economic engine to Alaska, providing $1.8 billion in annual economic impacts, and is responsible for 1 in 10 jobs in the Anchorage area. The Szczesniak also oversees the world's busiest seaplane base, Lake Hood, which is located next to the main airport. Prior to his position in Anchorage, Mr. Szczesniak was Deputy Commissioner of Aviation for the Chicago O'Hare and Midway International Airports. Mr. Szczesniak holds an MBA from the University of Chicago and a bachelor's in aviation management from Southern Illinois University. He is also a licensed commercial pilot and aircraft mechanic. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the AEDC Voice, Mr. Jim Szczesniak.
Yeah, Bill, thank you for that. So I'm going to pop my my presentation on the screen here real quick. Okay, so we should be good to go here. So again, just to to re-hit on those facts and figures. So air cargo wise, yes, we did about 3.4 million tons last year, made us number 2 in the US behind the Memphis FedEx hub, number 4 in the world. We were briefly the world's busiest airport at times, usually the Tuesdays, in April and May of the previous year, we were the busiest airport in the world. There were times when I would pull up the flight radar and there would be more planes in the sky coming to and from Anchorage than there would be for Heathrow and Frankfurt combined. So definitely we were pretty busy last year. 1 in 10 jobs, again, about 85% of those people badged at the airport live in Anchorage. So again, really important for the Anchorage area. Economically, that translates into about $1.84 billion to the state. About $1 billion of that is direct payrolls. So obviously that's the stuff that gets heavily poured into the local economy here. Other key thing about that, ANC uses no state general funds. So we are fully funded by our airline user fees and then ticket tax receipts that we get from the federal government. So that's, again, a good thing from a state of Alaska is you got this great asset, and the state of Alaska really doesn't have to invest any money in it. Key thing on that too, if you're interested in what we do here on a regular basis, you can go to the Smithsonian channel. They have a great show on there. It's called Ice Airport Alaska. Season 1 is out there, and season 2 has been shot and should be released sometime probably this fall or winter. It's a pretty good synopsis of all the difficulties we deal with keeping this as the world's busiest or almost world busiest cargo airport up and running in the winters here. So I want to give you a little update on what's going on from a passenger perspective. So if you look at this graph, this is from Destinations Analysts, which is a basically tourism and marketing firm that does a bunch of survey data with travelers. And the key thing that you want to see here is this Alaska blue dot here in the middle. And what that is this is a January 2020 study. And what we're seeing right now is Alaska is really a pretty hot market from a tourism perspective. And you can see that we're up in the leagues with the big boys, your traditional gateways for tourism. Alaska is really attractive at that time. And if you look on the same chart, there's a little star on there, gold, that says 18. In 2018, they did the same survey, and that's where Alaska roughly was right there. So we've significantly increased our appeal to the general public and their likelihood to come visit us. And looking at these charts, Alaska kind of really stood out for that acceleration in desirability. And again, if you look at where we were in 18, and we were also if you look at these dots, there's familiarity. We've moved up to a mid-tier familiarity dot. So it's, again, all good news from a tourism perspective, and then we're seeing that obviously translated into the activity that we've had here. One of the things is the airport that's important is to make sure that we give travelers the confidence that they want to come and see us. So, Alaska was a really attractive destination for the summer from a COVID perspective. We as the airport want to make sure that we do our part on that. So if you look at the Anchorage airport, our #1 mention in Google reviews is that we're clean, and we want to keep it that way. Again, we've done a lot of additions to the terminals to make sure that people feel clean and safe coming through here. We've had a COVID screening and testing program at the airport since June of 2020, so that's worked out very well. And then we do have active vaccination clinics at the airport. As of right now, more than 2,000 people have been vaccinated here at Anchorage. And the vast majority of them actually happen to be Alaska residents. So I think it's over, I think it's around 70%, somewhere around that. Our Alaska residents have been vaccinated here. So good for everybody. Terminal, again, what we've been doing is trying to continue to upgrade the terminal experience so that it's good for the traveling public. Recently completed stuff is we've got new lactation suites in both the north and south terminal. The south terminal 1 is located roughly between gates 5 and 6 on the Alaska Airlines side. It's a nice newer, the architects who designed the existing south terminal did a really good job putting these areas in here, but they weren't kind of a full lactation suite. But the full lactation suite has the locking door and a little more of a better situation in there if you're going to be breast pumping in there. So again, these lactation suites are better. We've upgraded also our SARA, which is the Service Animal Relief Area. So if you look at the picture on the top right, we've got a little area there, a little fake grass where they can go in and do their thing. And we've got some ability to clean up there. So again, for passengers traveling with service dogs or pets, it's a much better experience for them using that facility. And that one is located in the B concourse, kind of by gate B1. While doing the SARA upgrade, we also did some changes to the family room that we've got that's right next to it over there on the B concourse. And so what we did is we changed up a little bit, made it a little more calming there for making it a sensory friendly family room there. So you've got some children that travel to the airport that are maybe on the autism spectrum. The airport environment itself can be pretty, overstimulating. So this room is there to help those families traveling to be able to get out of the hustle and bustle of the terminal as they wait for their plane in that more calming environment. And then in the bottom right picture, you'll see we also added an outdoor waiting area. With COVID and what we had saw projection wise for passengers to be coming through the airport, we wanted to make sure that a passenger that was feeling uncomfortable in the terminal because of crowds was there and had an opportunity to wait somewhere else outside of the crowd area. So this outdoor waiting area has actually been pretty popular. When I walk by, I see a lot of people usually sitting there, and it's a really nice location. But again, some of the other things that we've done at the airport too is we've updated our filtration system in the air. They've got these MERF 13 filters now, which is the highest filtration that we can go with. In addition, we've been pumping in a lot more outdoor air. And if you look at, we've got monitoring gauges in the terminal now that monitor the air quality there. And the terminal indoor air quality is pretty close to outdoor air quality. So it's a pretty good situation when you go in our terminal. It's almost equivalent to outdoor air when you're in there. We've also recently created some touchless upgrades. So we knew with the COVID concerns that the traveling public didn't want to be touching things. So in the bathrooms, we had the automatic sinks, but we didn't have the soap dispensers were all touch. So we replaced all the soap dispensers there, so your experience in there can be more touchless. Then we added that same technology to the water bottle fountains at the airport. So when you fill your water bottles or you drink from the drinking fountain, you don't have to touch anything anymore. And if you do have to touch it, we steam clean those on at least a weekly basis. So if we take a look at some of the data from the summer, 2021 was very strong. So we're up this is through the end of June. We're up 348% versus 2020. And that's only 17% down versus 2019, which was our record year. And so that's a pretty strong recovery. It's definitely above the average for the nation. It's above the other, peer airports that we deal with, our mid-sized hubs. So it's a good story that we actually, got the airlines to buy into the Alaska for this summer. They brought the aircraft in, and we've been processing the passengers. So if you look at the passenger numbers, we've had an additional 439,000 passengers versus 2020. And if you figure the vast majority of them are tourists, and we know that a tourist that comes to Alaska spends at least $1,600 while they're here, that translates into hundreds of millions of dollars that have been poured into the Alaska economy this year with those robust passenger numbers. So we're very, very thankful for that. Part of that success, Trudy in our office goes out and meets with the airlines, and she makes sure that they understand Alaska and understand the benefits of Anchorage. And so again, this year we added Frontier Airlines as a new airline for us, and we got new destinations for this summer. So again, we got Detroit that was new. We got JFK that was new. Our Vegas service was off and on again, but it was back on again. So again, it's all good destinations for us. We also saw an increase in wide body service for the airport. So American Airlines specifically, they came in with 787 wide bodies from Dallas and Chicago. I actually flew the Chicago one. The plane was full and very comfortable. So again, strong performance for that wide body this summer. Alaska Airlines, it's a little, we're seeing some benefits to them. They've joined the One World partnership, and those benefits are starting to pay off now. Better cooperation with with American Airlines, and again, it provides access for that One World traveler that has the status there to look at Alaska and say, hey, you know what, I can take airlines up to Alaska and I'll be taken care of. So real happy with the Alaska Airlines transition to One World right now. I think that's going to definitely pay benefits to us as we continue to move forward. And then for Delta, the other thing that we added from a customer service perspective is they wanted to do a pop-up Sky Lounge at the airport. So we work with them to do that Sky Lounge. benefit for them, but then also from an airport perspective, we were looking at it as a way that we know that the B concourse, that HEX area can be pretty congested during the summer. And with the COVID and trying to get some additional social distancing, it was a good opportunity for us to pull some of the people that are out of that B HEX head and put them up on that second mezzanine level over there where they can relax and relieve some of the congestion in there. For winter 2021, we're working with the tourism folks and the airlines on developing winter tourism. So the airport's been putting a pretty good focus on trying to get folks to add winter as an option for Alaska. And that comes in two flavors. So the first flavor is the traditional, markets where we're serving nonstop year round, or the areas that feed those. But then also what we're trying to work for is the carriers that start traditionally in May with their flying. We're trying to get them to start developing their product into the March timeframe, because March in Alaska is a wonderful time in the winter. So that would be a good time for them to start those services. So if we can get an extra 2 months of flights up here from the people who are traditionally here off peak, again, those are going to be all good for the tourism industry up here. For summer 22, things are looking really good right now. So we've had a really good summer this year, and we had no cruise traffic of note. We're looking right now for cruise to return for next year, and that's about 440,000 cruisers that do that kind of cross Gulf experience where, Anchorage is a key connection point for them. We have talked with the international airlines that serve the Anchorage airport. Those guys all intend to come back for next summer. So that's our Icelandairs, our Air Canadas, our Condor, and Eurowings. So we'll have, again, 2 flights, two airlines operating the Frankfurt route, plus you have the plus you've got the Icelandair route, and then Air Canada will be coming out of Vancouver. Exciting news for the airport now is we actually have a new airline that is intending to launch out of Anchorage. And so Northern Pacific Airways is set to begin service at AEDC next year. And what they're going to do is try and replicate the Icelandair model. So that's going to be taking 757s and flying them, using Anchorage as a connecting hub location. And so that's going to get us service into Tokyo and Seoul and Osaka and Nagoya in Japan. And then, going into the lower 48, be looking at Oakland, Vegas, Orlando, Houston, and New York. So those are all good markets for us. And the Icelandair concept is something that's very attractive. So if we look at Iceland and what they've done with that is in 2008, 2009, when the financial crisis happened, Iceland was sitting on the middle of the Atlantic and trying to figure out what they were going to do to get their economy going. And they went with this the Iceland stayover concept and connecting hub. And so they were connecting North America and Asia, North America and Europe through Iceland. The great thing about that is that actually quintupled the amount of passengers that were traveling through that airport at a point. So it's a very, again, promising endeavor for us. And then if you look at the markets that we're trying to serve, Tokyo, Seoul, Osaka, those are all huge markets on the international side. So being able to get that nonstop traffic is going to be really attractive for us. For Alaskans, we would be very thankful to take that airplane going into Asia, because we avoid the whole flying down to Seattle, LA, or San Francisco, and then literally flying back over Alaska on our way to Asia. So I'm very excited about that. Again, we're hoping that we get that, that Icelandair effect where they basically started that project in 2008 and 2009, and then growth was exponential. And we want to see that from Northern Pacific Airways. So I'll give you a little bit of update on cargo. So calendar year 20, we were up 16%. We got to 3.4 million tons. Cargo actually saved many of the airlines. So in 2018, a traditional passenger airline would generate about 12% of their revenue from cargo. In 2020, that jumped up to about 30% of their revenue. So again, cargo has been very strong during this pandemic, and we again anticipate it to continue to grow. right now, in the first half of 2021, we're up 23% versus last year, which was our busiest year. So again, continuing that strength. We at the airport have been doing a really good job. We've been nominated Best Cargo Airport in North America and Best Cargo Airport in the world. Again, we're working really hard as the airport to make sure our customers are successful. With the COVID situation, we had a really heavy role in making sure that we kept the flow through the airport by working with the business community, making sure that the pilots got to the hotels and they were quarantined, but because they're quarantining, we can get them food service from their, if they're Asian pilots and they want Asian food, we had to kind of work with folks to make sure that we can get them what they needed. So, and again, for the transportation back and forth from the airport, getting the vans kind of set up to make sure that those pilots were well, protected there, because that's a critical asset for the airlines. We're working some new destinations now. So we've been working with the Vietnamese on getting some additional lift out of Hanoi. They're getting, there's a lot of, manufacturing and stuff being moved to Vietnam. And we want to make sure that we capture a lot of that traffic to be able to bounce that through Anchorage, because Anchorage is a hub and spoke for cargo. And what we want to do is grow our network of destinations, because that just makes Anchorage more powerful and the ability to move product through here successfully. Also looking at India. You wouldn't think India is far away from everywhere, but actually from Anchorage, you can fly nonstop from a lot of those destinations, and particularly towards the west coast of the United States. So if you're going to go to the East Coast, you go the other way around the world. But to go to Asia, India, Asia to Anchorage and the West Coast, it actually makes more sense to come over our direction. So again, trying to work that. And then Europe, we're again trying to use that network that we have here to explain to the Europeans that they can fly a plane in here, and with our special air cargo transfer rights, have the ability to put that into a whole bunch of different markets that a lot of the Europeans don't traditionally serve. So, if you look at your traditional Europeans, they go into Shanghai, they go into Incheon, but a lot of the other places that they don't. If you look at Anchorage, we go into the small Chinese cities of 10 million, like Wuhan and Hefei and Hangzhou and Wuxi and all kinds of places like that. That that stuff going from the Anchorage market that Europeans can't tap. Surprisingly, too, Europe has got really bad connections to Taiwan. So we've got great connections from the carriers here. So trying to educate the Europeans on the potential to use Anchorage to be able to connect a lot of those places. And then we're working with a lot of with airports down in the lower 48 to continue our growth trajectory. So we realize that some of the congested gateways down in the lower 48 are having issues. So we want to work with the up and comer gateways to get them up and going. So Pittsburgh is one where we've seen that as a great potential. It's a former U.S. Air hub, so they've got plenty of runway capacity. They've got a lot of land, and strategically they sit in where you can serve the Northeast, the Southeast, and the Midwest, all right out of Pittsburgh. So it's got a good potential there. So we're working there to make sure that Anchorage wants to grow. We got to make sure that our partners all want to grow too. Key thing for us to understand as Alaskans is that, you can be a global business from Alaska. We've got daily nonstop flights to more than 30 markets with wide-body cargo aircraft. Going into the lower 48 tends to be a little full, but going into Asia, there's generally capacity available on those aircraft going back to Asia. So again, it's a good way for you, Anchorage and Alaska-based businesses to tap into Asian markets out of this location. Another thing that we're seeing is the acceleration of e-commerce. During this pandemic, it was up 32%. IBM basically said that tech acceleration put 5 years of growth into 1 year. And so what we're seeing is again, that e-commerce growth is just exponential. Traditional shipping methods now are starting to change. With the port congestion that we're having, people are looking to, instead of getting periodic containers of goods, they're morphing into a more regular flow of pallets that are coming via air cargo. And so Logistics, Capital, and Strategy, they did an analysis on what they thought when they're like 94% of trade weight in the Trans-Pacific is via ship. And if the airport just stole 1% of that ship traffic, we'd be able to get a 16% increase in air cargo. And they think it's actually possible to think about stealing potentially 2 or 3% from ship. So again, there's really good potential for growth at the airport from an air cargo perspective. And with e-commerce, we don't kind of see that slowing down. So one of the things that we were interested in is how do we kind of maximize this congestion at the ports to be able to capture that ship traffic. And so we worked with AEDC and Nanic Logistics to come up and study what we call AKSpeed as a way to maximize our potential. And so this chart here shows you that as Alaskans, all the stuff that we buy on a regular basis comes up through the container ports, arrives at the port of Anchorage or port of Alaska, and then basically goes back empty. And so the thought was, instead of carrying that stuff and sending it back empty, can we take goods and process it here and then put it into the lower 48 supply chain using our backhaul? So from an Alaska perspective, that's good because it creates jobs and economic activity. But it's also right now, everything that we ship up here, we're paying the container for the ride up here and the ride back. So if we can get some other people to kind of participate in the ride back, hopefully that will drop the rates that we in Alaska are paying. And so if you look at the kind of big numbers there, we have about 151 747s worth of containers going back, roughly empty, every week. And so that's a substantial amount of capacity. So we're working to, educate the market on this. We just kind of kicked this off about a month ago, a little less than a month ago. And so working with the community right now to try and educate them about the potential. But there is definitely interest because everybody is stressed out on the port congestion. If you look at, the tote ship, it transits down there and, from Anchorage down to Tacoma in 3 days. Most of those big giant ships in California are sitting off the port for at least 6 days. So again, it's a competitive advantage for us right now to be able to put this program into place and see if we can get it. Our biggest challenge right now we're dealing with is getting the aircraft lift. But our pitch to the airlines ultimately is that you can just efficiently fly Asia, Anchorage, Asia, Anchorage, Asia, Anchorage, and do the business here. And then the airplane doesn't have to go all the way back into the lower 48 and fly back. So you might be able to get a couple more turns on your aircraft, generate some additional revenue. And so this kind of slide over here kind of shows you some of the advantages that we've got over here. So the top one kind of shows you the cost per kilo. Your yellow bar is your traditional air cargo, which is, generally expensive. And then if you look at the green, you've got kind of those green ones are the AKSpeed. So those are one of them's via the road transportation. So basically taking the LCAN down, or the other green is the taking the ships down into the port of Tacoma. And so from a if you look at a market like Taipei, there's definitely some attractive return there, and Bangkok and places like that. The bottom chart kind of shows the time differential that's available there. Again, this data was kind of pulled in the June timeframe. So maritime from June forward is only gotten worse. So those blue bars would go even higher. But if you look at the blue bars, those are kind of the minimum and maximum transit times from those markets via ship. And if you look at the green, that's kind of what we would consider our AKSpeed timing. And then the yellow is air cargo. So again, when we boil it down, there was only 2 methods of shipping from Asia to the United States, and that was the slow boat from China or the fast, expensive airplane. This AKSpeed now gives us this kind of medium speed, and that may be attractive to certain shippers, because again, there's a lot of people that use air cargo because of the expense is worth it for the product that they've got on there. But again, the key thing is that we want to make sure that we can take whatever we can off of the ship traffic and see if we can really grow our markets there. And so what does that lead into? It leads into future collateral development. So you've got, this existing cargo infrastructure here at the airport. You got a Professor Sheffy out of MIT has a logistics cluster theory, where basically you kind of get these clusters of logistics facilities, and they just can keep growing and compounding off each other because you get this information exchange with the local community, specialized labor, specialized suppliers. So again, if we continue to build in, we're already very powerful in the logistics industry. If we can continue to up our game in there, it only continues to grow. It also gives the ability to do some additive manufacturing here, maybe some final assembly or packaging here, because of the fact that, again, we've got all this product that could come in here. We could take it into the facilities that are going to be built around the airport and process it, and then we have the ability to send it via air, or now we have the ability to send it via ship into the lower 48 supply chain. So again, all good things from a cargo perspective, all good things right now from a passenger perspective, and now we're looking at development at the airport. So we right now have about $1 billion worth of private development proposed at the airport. That's, if we look at the numbers of potential employees on that, it's about 750 to 1,500 full-time direct jobs here at the airport. That doesn't include the amount of people that are going to be required to construct it. But you've got a FedEx expansion that's proposed. They're currently doing ramp work over there, getting their ramps upgraded to handle a more 777 operation. UPS is in a similar situation, so they've got those 747-8s. They're large aircraft. They've got bigger wingspans, and they need more room. And they are also working on a ramp project for next year. You've got Alaska Cargo and Cold Storage that's working on a cold storage and cargo combination there. And that really is going to open up the opportunity for Anchorage from a perishables and a pharmaceuticals perspective. If we think about perishables from an Alaska perspective, it's going to be giving Alaskans the ability to get better seafood processed out of here and shipped where you can actually ship fresh seafood to Asia, not frozen, and give us some strength there. Also with the peonies industry. So you have the ability to get more industrial from a peonies perspective and bulk ship peonies, to global markets through Anchorage. 6A is working on a cargo transfer warehouse. You've got IC Alaska. They're looking at a cargo transfer warehouse, some ramp, and then also looking for MRO/hangar. MRO is maintenance, repair, and overhaul. So being able to do that, use the aviation ecosystem here to attract more business here to potentially do some maintenance. We've got lots of airplanes that are flying through here, lots of big airplanes. So if we can get them a little maintenance while they're here, that'd be great. We'd also look at it from a logistics standpoint for large aircraft pieces, so landing gear assemblies, flaps, engine nacelles, kind of storing and repairing them here. It's much more economical to have stuff in a warehouse here in Anchorage than it is in high rent Tokyo or high rent Singapore or high rent Shanghai. So again, using our geographic advantage and our network to be able to fulfill, orders in that Asian market. The other one that we've got that we're excited about too is Signature Flight Support. They're going to be building a new facility over on the coolest ramp, or upgrading an existing facility. And so what that does is just like the cargo planes come to Anchorage, and that's because they basically fill the plane with cargo and then half gas and then fly here, and they can tech stop and then fly on. A lot of business jets have a similar situation. They don't have the length of stage that those big airplanes can normally do, so they have to stop somewhere. And Anchorage happens to be the ideal stop for biz jets that are transiting that Trans-Pacific market. So again, an upgraded facility there. We as the airport are excited. They're going to put in a customs facility there, so that's going to better customer experience, and then it's also a safety improvement for the airport too. As we look at perishables, one of the other things that the Alaska Cargo and Cold Storage Facility gives us the ability to do is better distribute perishables out of Anchorage, because there's a lot of perishables that flow through. So if you look at, I picked 3 airports just to take a look at it. And if you look at that, this is kind of the perishable flows on that. I'm just going to point out Seattle. So if you look at that first column there, well, we're exporting by air 12 million, out of here, or 12 million out of here, but you've got Seattle at 93. Well, most of that seafood is probably caught in Alaska and shipped down to Seattle, processed there, and then shipped out of Seattle. So if we can capture a lot of that through the new facility, again, all the better for the Alaska economy. But then again, we're offering that better facility for transfer. So the example would be, we have lots of planes that come up here from Latin America. So Guadalajara, Mexico, Miami, which is the gateway to Latin America. And those perishables are basically coming and flowing through here, and then going into generally Shanghai. And so what we're going to be, working with the community is educating them on the fact that it's better to bring it into Anchorage. We'll process it here and divide it, and then actually put it on the planes that are going to get it closer to the customer, because it's a perishable, and it's important to get it as close to the customer as possible. So instead of taking everything into Shanghai and dealing with Shanghai traffic, you would have the ability to, put a couple pallets on the plane to Wuhan, Hefei, Tokyo, Seoul, Osaka. You can get much more efficient here. And then again, a lot of these things are being stored in southern climates where it's a little, it's hot and you got to keep it cold. For the Alaska, seafood and, this perishables facility, half the year you can just basically open the door and keep the stuff cold. So again, it's important for us to be a better player in that perishables market. Same thing goes with the pharmaceuticals. If you're looking at just the 3 airports that I picked in my analysis, that's the exports and imports for some pharmaceuticals. Substantially, most of them are coming out of O'Hare and JFK, and we know that you can't fly nonstop from O'Hare to JFK, so those are probably all pretty much transiting through Anchorage. So giving the ability for those to be better distributed out of Anchorage is a positive. On the other end of the spectrum, we're also working with the Singaporeans. They're getting into the pharmaceuticals industry pretty heavy. And Singapore's hot, so bring it up here into Anchorage and we will store it, and then we will divide it and ship it for you, because we do have a daily Singapore Airlines cargo freighter that comes into the airport, so we can have those pharmaceuticals here, cheap electricity compared to Singapore, keep stuff cold, but then we have the ability to actually take that pallet, and if we need a couple boxes are going to the Texas market, we got to planes going to the Texas market. But if a couple, vials need to go to Dr. Jones or Dr. Smith or Dr. Anderson, we can move that into the FedEx or UPS or DHL pipelines that are here at the airport to better distribute. So again, seeing pharmaceuticals is a good potential for us here. Another thing that we're doing at the airport is we're doing our updated master plan. So we're wanting to make sure that we plan for the future. We've got a lot of exciting growth here. We want to make sure that we maximize the potential of the airport. We want to identify prime redevelopment opportunities. So again, looking at the front of the airport, I think there's much more that can be done there to support a lot of the businesses and the growth that we're going to see here in the future. And then I know that there's probably some of the construction and development folks on here, so I always kind of close this presentation with my slide here, which basically shows that we've got a lot of private investment going on at the airport, but we also have a lot of airport investment that's going forward right now. This is just kind of a snapshot of what's in the pipeline right now. We've got a lot of some flat work that's going on, but we also have some vertical work going. In addition, the FAA is going to be replacing their air traffic control tower here. So we'll have a new air traffic control tower that's going to be built at the airport in a couple of years. And it should be quite impressive, because I think it's going to be about 300 feet tall. Again, a lot of good development going on here at the airport. So with that, I'll kind of close it and save some time for some questions.
Well, Jim, thank you. Really appreciate the in-depth nature of the presentation. Very helpful to the audience and very exciting stuff that's going on at the airport. I've got 3 questions that we'd like to run by you before we go to questions from the audience. And Kate's gathering those questions. So folks, if you're on, you got a question, there are no bad questions except those that have never been asked. So please, put your questions into the Q&A. And we will get to as many of them as we can before we are done. Jim, we know there are several new developments already scheduled at the airport. Are there any projects still on your wish list, projects that you'd really like to see come to Anchorage that really kind of stand out in your thinking as being, something that we really need to strive for?
So I see it right now as the ones that are in the pipeline are enabling projects for collateral development. So, you've got these facilities here, when they're built out, and that gives you the ability to, again, attract those collateral development. So again, if you got it from an e-commerce perspective, well, we've got land available that's literally across the street from UPS, FedEx, and DHL. You can't get better neighbors than that in that e-commerce market. Again, that ability to come in here and do, bring product in from Asia and then to finalize it for the North American distribution. So whether that's packaging or assembly and stuff like that, those kind of projects, so those facilities would be, good to add to the Anchorage economy. Again, helping the local P&E's industry get bigger. Again, we've been working with the Dutch because they're really good at the food and perishables in a northern latitude. So trying to see if we can get some wisdom from them on how we can really do things better here, particularly because of the fact that we do have that capacity going back to Asia. So you'd be able to grow food here in Alaska, which benefits Alaskans, but also you'd be able to serve all those Asian markets.
Excellent. Next question. The airport recently announced a partnership with Pittsburgh International Airport. Are there other airports nationally or internationally where you are looking to form more strategic partnerships along those lines?
Yeah, so our next one that's on our radar right now is we're looking for a little more where we can try and pick an airport that we're going to work with to try and better deal with Latin America and how we're going to be able to do capture that Latin American traffic. We have a pre-existing agreement with Shanghai Airport, so from an Asia perspective, we're interested in working certain markets there. But our next one kind of on the radar is somebody that's going to work with our Latin America access. So, Pittsburgh's going to get us that East Coast. And then, we're going to go Latin America and probably a little bit maybe in the California market or maybe Reno. There's a lot of people that are fleeing California and going to Reno for logistics. And so we see them as a potential up and comer.
Okay. And then my last prepared question, and this is more for fun than anything else. United Airlines announced in June its plans to buy 15 supersonic passenger jets. Do you think supersonic flight's going to make a comeback? And do you think it makes sense for Anchorage International Airport?
So it makes sense for Anchorage International Airport because if you look at you don't see it on there, but those airplanes have that kind of 4,400 nautical mile range. So that what they're doing is basically flying them supersonic, and you can't go from Hong Kong to LA. It's just not possible. They got to stop somewhere. Anchorage happens to be about that right spot. So we're looking to attract that kind of service. So it's a little bit more down the road, but it's something that we're actively looking at because of the fact that we happen to sit in the right location to be able to handle that traffic.
Okay, well, I'm going to turn it over to Kate. Kate Matheson, our development director, is managing the Q&A. Kate, what questions do we have for Jim from the audience?
Thank you, Jim, for that wonderful presentation. Yes, we do have a few questions from our participants. The first one, is the outdoor waiting area behind security, or does a person need to go through security again?
No, it's before security. So we looked at trying to put one post security, but we didn't really have any options there. So we at least wanted to do that pre-security. And for our airport, we do have a lot of people here that have long dwell times. So they arrive, a couple hours prior to their flight. So it's an option for folks. It's not the ideal option, but it's a good option.
Okay, good. I do have someone asking about the Iceland model. He says, thank you for presenting today. Would you mind expanding on your comments regarding copying the Iceland model of travel into Anchorage?
Yeah, so what Iceland Air did is they set up a hub and spoke at their airport in Iceland, and they also included a 7-day stayover. So if you bought a ticket from Chicago to Frankfurt, you could fly Chicago to Iceland. You'd be able to stay in Iceland for 7 days, and then you can get on your plane and continue on to Frankfurt. So from an Asia perspective, we'd like to be able to see that concept work here. So you'd be able to buy your ticket from Tokyo to Orlando, right? You want to go see the mouse. You basically take your Tokyo flight, you come into Anchorage, you spend a week here seeing Mother Nature, and then you get on the plane and you continue on, you go see the mouse for a couple days, and that's a really good and cool vacation. So trying to look at that kind of a model. The other added benefits that we're trying to look with that is that, there's a lot of international airports in the United States that aren't exactly the greatest for customs processing. So we're really looking to try to up our customs processing so that it's really not that big of not a disadvantage. So the example I'll give you is if you fly nonstop into Chicago, when you get to Chicago, you got to stay in customs line for about 2 hours. And then after that, you got to jump on the train that takes you from the international terminal to the domestic terminal, and then you got to go back through TSA. And so it's, you've got well over 2 hours of invested time there transiting at Chicago. Well, if we can just come in here and we can do the whole thing within that time frame, there's really no disadvantage to somebody going nonstop versus stopping in Anchorage, because we can come in here, we'll process you from a customs perspective, and then you can fly into Chicago and you go to the domestic terminal and you can catch your connecting flight.
Okay. Here's another one. Is the airport open to working with startup companies? And if so, where do you see an opportunity for innovation around development, services, technology that would add value and help Anchorage stand out and grow?
Yeah, so from a startup company perspective, this is part of what we do is this educational thing, because there might be some startups that do not realize that they have access to all these international markets out of Alaska. So we want to make sure that the startup community understands what they can do here. From a technical perspective, the state of Alaska is our owner, so we have to follow state procurement rules. So that generally doesn't lend itself very well to working directly with startups, and then particularly because our procurement rules require us to do competitive bidding situations. Again, we're not the most ideal candidate for that.
Is the airport looking to partner with groups who train employees for careers in aviation?
Yes, so the airport is extremely interested in workforce development. So we're in the process right now of trying to get a person at the airport dedicated fully to workforce development, because we have our own needs. So the airport has I need ops officers, I need police and fire officers, we need facilities people, we need mechanics, we need everybody too. But what we want to do is make sure that we're working with the high schools and the colleges and the local civic organizations to make sure that we have a workforce that can, kind of accommodate all this growth. So that is, I just actually got off a call about 2 hours ago where we were actually discussing this exact topic.
Okay, here's another one. What is the projected timeline for the infrastructure build out?
Yeah, so for the cargo development projects, you're looking at probably 2 to 3 years on those. For our terminal work, it's a continual process. We always have to invest and upgrade the facilities here.
Okay.
So Kate, is that all the questions we have?
We do have one or two more if we have time.
Sure.
Okay, what do the partnerships bring to Anchorage? I think that's probably a follow-up question about, is the airport open to working with the startup companies? Yeah. And the follow-up was, what do the partnerships bring to Anchorage?
Well, what we'd be looking for is kind of innovation. So I'll give you an example of one that actually worked out really well for us. So there's actually a company in Anchorage that developed what SMS program that they were selling nationally. SMS is Safety Management System. So we, the Anchorage Airport, we actually bought that program. It's a very good program. We like it a lot. And so what we're doing from a partnership perspective is that when we talk to other airports, we explain to them, hey, there's this company in Alaska that's created this great SMS product. We're using it. You guys should check it out because it's actually working very well for us. So that's kind of one of the things that I would say is something that we've already done.
Okay, I think we might have time for one more. As we approach the 20th anniversary of 9/11, are airports safer than ever before, and how does ANC maintain security?
Yeah, so from a security perspective, we just completed an upgrade of our baggage handling system in the B concourse. So again, we're continuing to add new technology. If you look in the main TSA checkpoint where you walk through, you've got the new X-ray machines that are in there that are actually the CTX machines. So it's much better for people going through. So we're going to continually add to those. And again, your traditional X-ray machine is a little limited, particularly in its ability to see and distinguish between foods and liquids and stuff like that. And computers, the new fancier ones are much better at that. So we're seeing that upgrade there from our own law enforcement at the airport. All our officers are now up on body cameras. They're also getting specialized training. So we're working specialized training here at the airport on our traditional security roles, but also looking at human trafficking operations here at the airport too. So if we can mitigate that while people are transiting our airport. So again, we're always interested in the safety and security at the airport and how we can improve that. And we're putting the time and effort in there to continue to upgrade.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn the time back now to Bill.
Well, Jim, I think that pretty much wraps us up for today. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your very busy day. I'm watching all the aircraft moving around behind you out your window. It's another busy day at Anchorage International Airport, and that's all wonderful to watch and see. Great presentation today. Can't thank you enough, Jim, for all the detail and granularity you provided us in what's going on at the airport. And deeply appreciate your support for AEDC and the partnerships that we work. Just for the audience's benefit, there'll be more details coming out on the AKSpeed project here in the next few weeks. Keep an eye out for that, including some of the background research, which is all public domain. So we're going to be sharing that with everybody. Jim, any last thoughts that you wanted to share with the group today?
Yeah, just, come out to the airport and enjoy it. Fly, go somewhere.
I'll be thinking along those lines in about February when it's someplace warm, I'm sure. All right. Well, Katie, thank you again for kicking us off today, and deeply appreciate the great support of Alaska Executive Search and Bradison Management Group. As always, we really appreciate the support that makes today's program possible. And speaking of which, we've got our next program coming up on October the 13th at 10 a.m. We will be joined by Alaska CEO Roger Ballard with New Vision, which was formerly Denali Federal Credit Union. Roger will share the tale of merging the 73-year-old Denali Federal Credit Union with New Vision, its continued investment in Alaska, and what the business community can expect from New Vision in the years ahead. So keep an eye out for the invites on that, folks. We hope you'll all join us for that event. Should be a very, very interesting discussion. Change is in the wind, and we all need to understand the direction of that change and how it's going to benefit the Anchorage economy. So on behalf of the staff at AEDC, I want to thank again Anchorage International Airport and Jim Szczesniak for presenting today. I want to thank Alaska Executive Search and Bradison Management Group for sponsoring today. Kate, thanks for your support, and thank you all for joining us today. It was another great event. We look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you, Bill. Bye, everybody.